The next part of our social media campaign plan is part two. And in part two, we're going to look at the objectives, strategies, and tactics of your campaign. It would probably be useful if you take a look at the video that I have linked right below this one that describes each of those different terms so that you have a better understanding, but I will go through some of them as well in explaining this assignment. Okay, so this assignment is due on Friday, and it looks like there's a lot here, and this is the thought out part. This has the depth, but it's not going to be that long. It might just be a page or two, so don't worry too much about that quite yet. But let's take a look at each part. Okay, the first part of this part two is the campaign objective. Many of you, when you gave me the name of the business or the organization that you were going to work with, I told you to make sure that you were as focused as possible, to focus in on one product, one service, one need of an organization, whatever the case may be, because the more focused your social media campaign is, the better this is going to be. You don't want to focus on the business as a whole. Okay, so the campaign objective is the ultimate outcome that we are looking for from this campaign. Okay, for example, increasing sales, getting more volunteers, increasing online sales, attracting a different audience, so increasing sales for a different audience, whatever the case may be. It needs to be measurable, and it needs to be tied to the company's overall goal. Okay, and the goal is obviously always to make money or to help people. So, for example, in the Blue Willow example that you had, this group had two objectives. Now, you only have to have one campaign objective. Just realized I spelled that wrong. So you only need one campaign objective. They have two because there was, I think, 5 or 6 people in their group. Okay? But they had two objectives. One was to increase online sales, and the other objective was to attract a college audience. Both of these are measurable and specific. It's very easy to measure online sales. How do we measure if they've attracted a college audience? It would be to increase sales to the college audience. Okay? And there are ways you can measure that. You have to build that into your messages. Their third objective, which was talked about improving social media platforms, is really a strategy. And we'll talk a little more about strategies here in just a minute. Okay, so again, you just need to do one campaign objective. It needs to be measurable and specific. So it's increasing sales, increasing donations, increasing volunteers, and again, be as specific as possible. Increasing corporate donations, increasing individual donations, reaching college students, reaching families, whatever the case may be. Be as specific as possible in your objective. Okay, so once you come up with an idea of what this campaign is going to be about, and remember, awareness is not an objective. Building awareness for your company is a strategy to get people to buy or volunteer. Okay, it's not an objective. Building a Facebook page is not an objective. In fact, that's the last question on your final exam. True or false? Building a Facebook page is an objective, and it is false. It is not an objective. It's a tactic. It's a thing we do to increase awareness. It's a product we use to increase awareness. Okay? So objective, sales, donations, something like that. Okay, so that's your objective. And it should, just a nice paragraph there. It doesn't have to be super long. You want to sort of have a nice segue here between your part one and your part two. So have a paragraph here that says, after reviewing the company products and services and current social media usage and what content they have and what gaps we found in their content and their audience, we've come up with this particular objective for this social media campaign. And here it is. Okay, that's your paragraph. And then under strategies, this is your how. How are you going to accomplish that objective? So, for example, in the Scooters example, their objective was to increase the sale of breakfast sandwiches. Okay, tons of things you could pick on at Scooters to promote, but they decided to promote the breakfast sandwiches. So their objective is to sell more breakfast sandwiches. So how do we do that? Think about that. How do we get people to buy breakfast sandwiches? Well, one, it has to be convenient because we're all rushing off to work, getting kids to school, and those kind of things. So it has to be super convenient, okay? And that's sort of an intellectual approach to the idea of making people feel like, okay, it's important that we know your time is important, so we're going to make this convenient for you. It's also, research shows that it's healthier to have a good breakfast. Okay, you're more productive throughout the day. You're more likely to lose weight. There's tons of research out there on that. So we can use that sort of intellectual appeal to get people to buy our products. That's what a strategy is. How do we get people to do what we want them to do? And you can see here, emotional intellectual or fear appeals. An emotional appeal would be that warm, cozy way to start the day. Okay, oh, that was a rhyme. So it's some way to attract, food like your mom made or whatever the case may be. That's what emotional appeal is about. The intellectual is getting people to see that it's good for them in some way or form. Okay, or it helps the environment or whatever the case may be. Fear appeals don't work too well with the breakfast sandwich idea because you're not going to die if you don't eat a breakfast sandwich. But fear appeals tend to work best for health related things. For example, we had a client last semester, Fit Republic, and the students used a fear appeal in the sense of if you don't take care of yourself when you get older, you're going to have lots of health issues. You may not live to see your kids graduate, whatever the case may be. Okay, so be cautious with fear appeals, but they can be quite effective. Quit smoking, those kinds of things. So think about the emotional or intellectual way that you can get people to want to buy more breakfast sandwiches. Okay, and then we come up with themes and messages that we'll use to get people to buy our products. So sometimes strategies can be written as a theme statement or something like that, and that'll be important when we get to the second part, the next assignment, which is writing content, and we're going to talk about that in a different video. Okay. Now, I do notice here please note here that in the past, the assignments they called for themes and messages, the same thing as strategies. It was confusing for people, so we're not going to, themes and messages we'll talk about when we get to the content part. Okay, so objective, increase sales, strategies, make people know it's convenient, easy to do, good for you, whatever the case may be. And then your tactics are, how are you going to get that message out to your audience? Okay, this is where your social media comes in. Okay, so notice social media is the last thing. So if our objective is to sell more breakfast sandwiches, and our strategy is to make people know that it's convenient and that it's good for you, some of the tactics we will use will be, social media messages that explain how it's good for you, social media images that show people being more productive because they ate good breakfast, social media images that show how convenient it is, YouTube videos that show, whatever the case may be. It's what tactics you're going to use to share that message. Now, you can use events and coupons and things like that, but keep in mind this is a social media class, so I do want to see some social media tactics, primarily social media tactics, but you can use what we call offline tactics as well and include those in here. Now, this part is actually probably just going to be a bullet list. I want some depth, but it doesn't have to be written out in long paragraphs. Just make me bullet lists of we're going to try this and this and this and this and this. Okay? So this is where knowing who your audience is comes important too. Because, for example, up here on the Blue Willow, one of their, let me find Blue Willow up here, was to attract a college audience, to increase sales to college girls. Okay, I say college women because most of they have women's clothing. So if we want to increase sales to college women, how would we do that? Our strategy is to show college students that we have items that are cool and hip and will make them look attractive. I realize using the words cool and hip makes me uncool and unhip, but you get my idea. So that's, we want college students to see that we have clothing for them. So by saying that in my strategy, show them, I give my tactic right there. What's the best way to show college students anything? Instagram, because you have images and you can show images of the clothing. So Instagram is automatically going to be one of our tactics. Okay. Now I do make you write blog posts because usually all these businesses have a place where this stuff is stored, and that's a blog or on their website. And so you have these places where the articles are, and then you'll use social media to promote those articles. Okay. I'll talk a little more about that in the content writing assignment because that's where that comes. But your tactics will be, how are you going to get that message out? And this is where you use social media. Okay. So you'll start out with an introductory paragraph to talk, kind of tie part 1 and part 2 again, tell us what your campaign objective is. But strategies and tactics can be pretty much bullet points. Okay. So take a look at this. Take a look at the video that I have on objective strategies and tactics and put together something. This is due on Friday. If you get it to me early, I can take a look at it and give you some feedback for that. Okay, I'm going to take a look now at part one, and I know a couple of you got it to me before the Thursday evening deadline, so I will let you have some redo on that before I give you a grade on that. But everybody's going to get to do a redo, so if you kind of looked ahead, you get to see that, but I did promise that to those people. So anyway, take a look at this, part two of the social media campaign plan, and take a look at the video.